Ladies, gentlemen, and miniatures of all ages, one of the most interesting parts of Grounded 2 is the whole base building side of the game. One thing that I love to see is all the strange, fun, or silly locations people have been putting their bases on and the ways they've been making them as well. It's really impressive generally, and recently we talked about my first few favorite potential base locations in the game, as well as some tips for base building in general. Today we're going to talk about 10 more fun base locations that you can build up and around, and then some slightly more advanced base related tips as well. Starting off then with the tippage itself, traveling on ground is dangerous and often inefficient because you can't just walk in a straight line, you have to go around terrain, you have to avoid dangerous enemies, but something to deal with this that is obvious to people who played a lot of the first game, but maybe less so to newer players, is that because the only thing you need to build vertically is 1 or 2 bits of supporting planks that touch the ground, this means that you can make massive bridges connecting different parts of the map as you please in the air. All it takes is a staircase up or some other way of going up, and we'll talk about a very good one later. Then you can build outwards in whatever direction you choose, pretty much unobstructed. Then you build a way down from the other side, and it's done. Think of this like a highway through the park essentially. Straight line from point A to point B, wherever you want it to be, flat surface, minimal interruptions, and I've obviously gone a bit overboard with the width of this bridge, but you can make it much smaller to make it much less resource intensive and much faster to get online to begin with. On which note, the verticality of Grounded 2 has a couple of fun additions to the building options as a whole, which are the landing pad for a fall damage free landing zone from any height, which means that you can put this at ground level under any vertical base to make leaving the base much easier without any extra danger. Then there is also the ladder. This essentially lets you have something that functions like a staircase, but takes up way less space because you can just attach it to the side of a wall, up the whole side of the wall, go all the way up following the ladder itself. Ladders can be placed on the inside of structures if you want, they can be placed on the outside of structures as well, which makes it easy to get to more vertical bases too, and it just really helps without looking quite as awkward as a very, very large staircase on the outdoors. And to take all that even further, here's a trick that holds over from Grounded 1, known as bounce web elevators. The only technical requirements of this are 2 floor panels with a wall in between them. Then you want a bounce pad clipping very slightly through the wall on the flat side. Make sure it's one of the flat sides it's clipping through, or else you'll get caught on the object and it won't work because of clipping. And once you have this basic structure set up, the bounce web can technically do 3 walls height worth of jumping, but 2 walls of height is much safer and consistent, as well as being a little bit faster when you're actually going up. So every 2 walls of height upwards, you want to add another bounce pad floor on the outside of the actual traveling shaft. All of my extra walls that I have here, my extra floor and bit, is just to make it a little bit safer, make it a little bit easier to build, and to make it a bit more directional upwards so that I don't have to do much control myself. I just walk in the shaft and then it just completely does it all automatically. It always spits me out right at the top, nice and safe. Pair that with the landing pads that we just mentioned for no fall damage from any height, and then even an extremely vertical base becomes far more convenient to use because you can use an elevator to get up to it and then a landing pad to get down. You can also mix sky bridges with the elevator if you want your bridge to be very, very high up and still easy to access, but that's a whole extra level to all of this. Next up for tips, this one isn't crazy complex, but so many people just don't realize it, or at least don't utilize it properly if they do know, which is the bug trophy system. When you analyze certain bug parts, you will unlock recipes for that bug's wall-mounted head, and also a recipe for its stuffed bug version. The wall-mounted heads can be placed on a wall, and then rubbed for a short-term damage boost against that creature type. This makes it extremely effective for if you're going to do something like try and farm some northern scorpions as an example. These stuffed bugs, on the other hand, are for increasing drop rates from things that you kill. So if you also want more drops from those northern scorpions, you would make a stuffed northern scorpion and then rub that as well. This also applies to any of the bugs that have random chance trinket drops too, which makes them slightly easier to get your grubby little mitts on. With that covered, let's go on to talk about today's base locations. And as we have talked about some bases in the past, it is worth noting I won't be repeating anything we've already talked about, so if you're wondering why the fence posts around the street lamp aren't going to be included, that's exactly why. Some of these I have done some building on just to give you an idea of how they look once they're established a little bit. Others I'm more happy to leave up to the imagination a bit and just talk about the location itself. But the entire idea is that these are 10 spots I think people would really enjoy having a base on if they built one there. Some of them are smaller, some are larger, some are more central in the map than others, some are high, some are low, but every single one I think is fun or unique for one reason or another. First up, the smallest and least central of the locations today, but a really fun little spot is all the way over here just southwest of the ice cream cart. On this marker, there is a tipped over sneaker. As with all things that are small openings into a tight location, this is just absolutely begging to become a minor base. It's not really going to be a big base, it's not going to be your main base, but a sort of like resource station type spot where you can keep all of your cold resistant stuff, maybe for when you want to go into the ice cream cart, and then just grab the stuff before going in or something like that. It is nice, it's cozy, and while the inside of the shoe itself is an invalid building surface, you can build your floor from the ground outside right through the foothole and then work around that and build inside of the sneaker as a result. Also, this base does have a roommate inside, but I think he's unlikely to pay you rent outside of the first time you check his pockets. Next up, a much more classically solid base archetype within this type of game, we've got this absolutely massive rock southeast of the podium, and just a little bit east of the speaker as well. The rock itself is a buildable surface, which isn't often true of a proper vertical space like this. It is relatively central within the park at large, a bit more eastward leaning, but not too far east, and importantly, it is just an absolutely massive surface to build on with easy paths to walk up that you don't even need to make for yourself. Extra bonus, or a possible deterrent if you don't like it depending on how you view it, there are 3 bees that tend to sleep right at the very tip of the rock, so you either have some fuzzy neighbors that are friends, or some easy fuzz farming potential. Third, we've got one that can be of great use relatively early game, right here on your map, very central for what we currently have. If you go to the spot, you will find a big, dead, hollow log laying along this sort of valley pathway on the ground. The log itself, sort of like a larger version of the sneaker from earlier, makes for an excellent natural building location. The one real negative of this is that you don't get any verticality at all. You're basically indented into the ground, but the log itself is just a really nice shape to work with, and you could easily just put like a giant wall panel on each side of the open log exit with a door on the panel itself to get in, of course, and then just use the entire central space of the log as your actual living area and a place to keep your actual stuff. Another option for a relatively early location that still works quite well late if you actually put some effort into it is way over here on the big wooden table attached to the snack bar. There are some insect spawns up here, like a couple of mosquitoes, a bombardier beetle, sometimes a bee will try and sleep on the table as well, but those are mostly off to the side. They aren't in the sort of central east-facing part of the wooden area. This central section of the table itself, all the way down to the southern side of it, is mostly a safe zone. And unlike most man-made surfaces in the game, you can actually build up here naturally without having to do like a weird sort of a suspension tower just to have support for the floor. This makes it really easy to build up here. It is just a nice big base location on a very flat area that you can build upon. It's nicely vertical off the ground as well, giving you a nice view of the park at large. And again, the only real negative is that it's very westward leaning on the map and far away from a lot of the things that matter as a result. On the note of somewhat more remote bases though, if you like building fun tree houses, have a look at this pine tree over here to the northeast of the ice cream cart area. This tree is pretty much as buildable on as the other tree areas in the game, but while it's a little bit more off to the side for sure, it is still the most central tree that we currently have. The other options being the oak tree all the way to the southwest, and the trees that are all the way up in Pine Hills all the way to the northeast, so this one is actually not that bad. And it's worth noting when they do add more zones into the game, they're going to be adding a lot of them to the east and to the south, so this will be more and more central as more things are added into the game. As well, the root structure of this tree is actually quite fun, allowing you to connect across the different roots with some flooring and really just get a lot of space to work with here and connect. The only real negatives are that there are 2 orb weaver spiders that live under this tree in different parts, and a northern scorpion who roams the eastern side of the tree too. But once you get your base going a little bit vertical on the roots themselves, you're pretty much safe from those. Next up then we have one that is relatively central but quite low to the ground. It takes a small amount of work to get up to, as the surface itself isn't buildable without support, and I would say this one isn't really a tactical base location so much as just a really fun one, which is the skateboard over in the grass games area. This is the location of the mixer event that we currently have, or at least that mixer event is under the skateboard. The top of the skateboard, however, is pretty much free. There are some bees that like to sleep up here, but bees aren't too much of a deterrent, and if you build up some support from the ground, you can then build an actual base on top of the skateboard itself, because otherwise it is an invalid surface. This one, again, isn't really tactically advantageous for any reason, but you can build here. It's a unique aesthetic, it's a unique spot, it's a unique shape, so I thought it was worth talking about for anyone who likes funkier base locations. Next up is an honestly really solid base location, provided that you're willing to have some aggressive neighbors. This is right up here on the front steps of the statue itself. Here we have another extremely flat surface. All of this area here is very flat. This is reached from the upper area as you're ascending over the statue statue itself, and in this rectangle there's an orc mosquito and an orc bombardier beetle, and there's even an orc stink bug if you veer north enough, but you can build a bit further away from all of those if you want on the sort of south side of the area, and then you just have this absolutely massive, mostly flat space with a nice rocky aesthetic. No building limitations on the ground surface level either, so you can just build it however you like really. This one isn't quite central currently, but is close to a lot of important stuff, and is in a pretty prime position once the park gets expanded as well. Not to mention that part of this statue is us, so it's sort of cool to live here on a statue of ourselves just for that reason, if nothing else. While we are in the statue area though, this one is a much funkier one that I doubt most people will want to live on, but I wanted to mention it for the few people that actually do, which is way behind the statue itself. As you are ascending the statue, there is a hole through the back hedge that you can walk through to find this safe spot in the rear. You can build right onto the stone itself that is back here, you can expand into this whole open area as much as you want, and no insects seem to live back here at all right now, which makes it quite safe. As well, while this is extremely secluded and out of the way right now, in the future when more parts of the park are added, it should be in a pretty solid spot for accessing the whole northeast side. And even when that happens, you will still be in this little carved out spot between a bunch of walls to protect you from any insects, so nothing should just wander in here at any point. Basically, this is just a nice little hermit house spot, and it's a place where you can sit in solitude with a bunch of open space to work with too. Second to last, then, we've got a spot with a really unique aesthetic, honestly, which is right over here on the sprinkler itself within the grass games area. This spot is the biggest watery biome that we currently have, until of course the pond of the park is added in the future updates. But this is like a full-on swampland marsh surrounding the sprinkler for some relatively obvious reasons. It is a sprinkler. This does mean there are mosquitoes near the spot, of course, as mosquitoes do like that type of area, but if you like the idea of a swamp base, this is absolutely the best spot for this type of thing right now. You can't build directly on the sprinkler itself, but you can work with the shape of it. You can build up and around the sprinkler and have some fun with it. This one isn't particularly central, it isn't particularly vertical, it has enemies nearby, but it's a really unique spot fit for anyone who wants to live somewhere a little bit off the beaten path, or for Shrek. Then finally, if there's one thing really missing from Grounded 2, it's Burgle, or more specifically, Burgle's head. His body is still in the park, and it's really big, but his head is missing. The top of Burgle is sort of awkward to build on top of, especially because there are some mosquitoes that like to live there too, and while you could build under Burgle, a little bit easier than what I'm about to suggest, I really just sort of love the idea of becoming Burgle's head, just replacing his head with your base. Maybe it's a bit dark, maybe it's a bit grim, but hey, it's currently free real estate, so why not just move in, build up some foundations from the ground on the sides, and then just literally replace his head with your home. Yeah, okay, this one is a bit more of a joke suggestion, but in all honesty, Burgle's body is about as central as you can get in the current map, and using the side of his body as a vertical wall for your house can be very fun and unique to build with. So while I wasn't necessarily being serious about becoming his literal head, it's a really solid spot to build around in general. That just about does it for today then, everyone. Some slightly more advanced base building tips, and then 10 more fun base locations to build within in Grounded 2. Some of them are definitely more for efficiency than anything, but I wanted to include a bunch of places that are just fun, unique parts of the map to shape your base around, as I always find that way more interesting than just finding a big open flat area and then making a square on top of it. I hope you've all enjoyed this, and if you have any more ideas for fun base locations, feel free to share them in the comments down below for your fellow teens. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.